I have been a small business owner since 2020. And here are a couple things that I've learned from 6 years of being a business owner. I have had ups, I have had a lot of downs. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Ariana. I'm a social media manager and a content creator. On this channel, we talk about socials for business, content creation, work-life balance, routines, productivity, all of that fun stuff. If conversations and content like this interest you, I highly recommend subscribing. So today we are getting into all of the things that I've learned from being a business owner for such a long time. And I'm proud to say that I have been self-employed for about 6 years. That's insane. Wow. But let me tell you, the journey was not very mentally stable. So there are a couple different chapters of the journey. So let's take it way friggin' back to 2020. So me, along with a lot of other people, were very inspired during lockdown to start their own business. I remember thinking that I didn't know it was so easy to literally just start a business. So my first business that I started back in 2020 was a handmade jewelry business. So to give you an idea of my mindset and who I am and all of that stuff and the background story, I actually had, when I was 16, I got my first job at a dental office as a receptionist. My mom worked there, so it wasn't really a challenge to get in there, and I was 16 years old and I was working there up until I graduated from college. So I was there for about 5 years, and working there really kept me motivated to want to start my own business because the office culture was interesting. They're amazing, they're great people, and they're very nice, but it really just solidified in me that I wanted to start my own business and I wanted different streams of income. So I really heavily got into the side of YouTube before TikTok was a thing, of side hustles and how to make money. And then I eventually became a certified makeup artist. So I guess that was actually my first business, but I was the professional makeup artist at 17, 18 years old, and I was doing people's makeup for prom and they were paying me. So a business is a business, but that's kind of what my life was like before I started my first actual business. But I always was into side hustles. I was always into growth, productivity. I was always into social media too, because as a certified makeup artist, I also started a YouTube channel to become a makeup guru on YouTube. This was in 2016, 2017, when that was such a thing. This was when all of the makeup gurus on YouTube were thriving. So I was like, so back to 2020, I started my first small business, or second small business, I guess, creating handmade jewelry. So I was obsessed with the idea of Shopify, of owning a business, of packing orders. They made it look so freaking cute on TikTok. And I was like, I could totally do this. I literally didn't know that much about the back end of owning a business, but I did know social media and content creation because I feel like I had a lot of experience with editing and SEO and stuff like that because of my YouTube channel. And I was like, let's go for it. Why did I choose a jewelry business? I think jewelry was I don't want to say it was important to me, but it was something that I really enjoyed, I guess. And also I was really into the small business TikTok and people that were hand making things and literally creating things and selling it. So I was like, I think I'm going to go in this direction. I also felt like creating a handmade jewelry business was going to be easier for me to actually build and create and just start off with, because it would have been easier for me to do that than to go and outsource and buy a whole bunch of inventory. So I was literally fresh out of college and I was like, let me start this business. So I didn't really have any money to go and buy a whole bunch of inventory. So handmade jewelry, let's do that. So I created my Instagram account, I created my Shopify store, and I was actually getting orders. I spent about $700 in things to make jewelry, in packaging, in the subscriptions and stuff, and I actually broke even for the amount of money that I got versus the output, and I shut the business down. So what I learned actually from that business is a lot about the effort, the energy, and scaling your business. So from doing that, I learned that I don't like making jewelry with my hands. And I remember thinking, if I really wanted to make real money, it took me a couple months to make that $700. And I wouldn't say that I quit too early, but I really realized that if I wanted to make a livable amount of money from my jewelry business, I would have to be making necklaces and jewelry every waking moment. So that was a really interesting realization for me. And that kind of put me into a position or a direction of having a business that doesn't take up too much of my time, but also a business that is really scalable. To summarize the first thing that I learned throughout that long-winded backstory, if you want to start a business and you want it to really grow to heights that are really up there, then you cannot do it alone. And you need to be realistic about what the actual workflow is going to look like. Because if I was selling $3,000, even $3,000 in sales it's a good amount for like a successful business, but it's not a lot. It's somewhere in the middle. But if I were to make $3,000 worth of sales in the jewelry that I was selling, and like the pieces were $20, $30, I would literally have been burning my fingers off making jewelry with my jewelry pliers. So after I shut down or decided to shut down my jewelry business, I actually did learn a lot about social media marketing because of that business. So I was creating a lot of product content because of that business. I was doing a lot. I literally learned how to use Shopify, the back end. I learned a lot about inventory and keeping track of things. And it just sparked an interest for me to learn more about social media marketing and content marketing. And then I discovered what a virtual assistant was around 2021. So I found a creator on TikTok. Her name is Jessie. I will put her username right here, but she literally cracked open this entire world for me, and my life has never been the same. But I started a virtual assistant business, and the difference and the things that I've learned from the jewelry business that I took with me into starting this virtual assistant business was all of the things that I learned about content creation and content marketing and marketing a service or just a product or just a business on Instagram and TikTok. And then I also learned that the product or service has a lot to do with the scalability of your business. So when I first started my virtual assistant business, I created my Instagram account. I took her course. I learned all of the things. She mainly taught how to start your business, how to create your back end, how to onboard a client, literally the entire workflow of being a virtual assistant. And then your job was to figure out what specific services you wanted to provide. So the specific services that I chose was to offer social media content management services. So I was basically a virtual assistant doing social media management for small businesses. So as a virtual assistant, I actually grew my virtual assistant business page pretty quickly, and my starting package was about $300 or $200, and I got my first client. I started taking it seriously and really launched it in May of 2021, and I was consistent on Instagram, and I got my first client in July. So I was so happy. So towards the end of the year, I actually ended up making about $20,000 in half a year on this brand new business, and it was going really, really, really well. And this was also the time that Instagram Reels were just popping off. They were being heavily pushed on Instagram because they were so new. So again, this was in 2021. So I was just riding that success all the way to 15,000 followers on my business page. I was getting a lot of inquiries and business was going really well. And then here comes the down. So I was getting so many clients that I really couldn't keep up with it. And as a virtual assistant, a part of my marketing strategy or a content topic that I would talk about within what I was pushing on Instagram was telling business owners that they cannot do it all on their own and they need to outsource if they want to scale their business and if they want to make more money and be more successful. So I was like, who am I to not take that advice? So I went ahead and tried to create a social media. By this time, I was calling myself a social media manager, but I went ahead and tried to build out a social media like agency or like a team. So I hired a couple virtual assistants that I was planning on training to be social media managers or just to help me with my client work. And then that actually, I did it. People tell you to do things when you're not ready. And I literally did that. I was not ready and it was a mess. So it was so unorganized. It was a situation where I hired people to help me do things to make my life easier, but it ended up really, really stressing me out. I was so much more stressed having to manage this team of people along with clients because I wasn't ready. So it's not their fault, and I just literally didn't really go about it the proper way. So the second lesson that I learned was that you really need to have systems in place before you take really big steps of scaling, well, specific steps. So if you're in a place where you are working all the time, business is going great, you think you're ready to hire, you literally need to kind of go about it in a way where you are cloning yourself. So an ideal situation for me back then was if I hired a virtual assistant that was literally me or was literally doing what I do or how I do things, and the training process that I put them through it didn't give me what I actually needed. And again, I was not ready. So I was super stressed for like a month, but during that month I hit my highest revenue, which was only $6,000, which is pretty cool because I literally started the business 6-7 months before that. But that is my second lesson of being a business owner, and that happened pretty early. The third lesson that I learned after that was I decided to stop doing services, and I wanted to move a little bit more into digital products because let me tell you, I'm sure that this kind of product or service, like this just business model sounds amazing, right? You just have to make like an ebook, or you just have to make a little PDF of something valuable, and then all you have to do is create content and sell it. It sounds amazing. You literally don't have to do anything else. It's like passive income, but you are still creating content. So I fell for that so hard. Not to say that this is not a successful business model or you shouldn't do digital products, but you just be realistic when you are, because I've learned a couple things about trying to sell digital products, which I would love to tell you right now. So I actually came up with a content planner. So I actually came up with content template to help business owners create content faster. It was basically like a content kit. And I literally just out of nowhere on my Instagram page as my business, I just stopped promoting my services and I switched over to promoting my digital products, my content kit. That was the biggest mistake that I've ever made. Not to be dramatic, but my audience they were confused. A couple people did buy it and I had really great engagement before that, but it just all went downhill from there. So I kind of confused my audience, and I also basically threw myself into a dry spell of my business journey. So my engagement went down, sales were not really happening, and then when I decided to go back to offering services just because I needed money, that was not happening either because the engagement was not working. Like my videos, my content, they were not reaching the people that I needed them to reach. So this was a two-part lesson. The first lesson is that if you are going to pivot in your business and in your marketing, then I would suggest to make it a little bit more gradual and make sure that it makes sense to your audience, because your audience is so important and those are the people that are literally giving you money, and you need to be so transparent with them. The second lesson is that literally anything can happen. My engagement and my page was just growing, and it literally just stopped out of nowhere. out of nowhere. But that is just a lesson in Instagram is not your friend or is not reliable. Any social media platform is not reliable if you are a business owner. Every single time Instagram shuts down, you will hear these social media gurus, the Instagram gurus tell you, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Make sure you grow your email list. Just, make sure that you have means to reach your audience without social media. And that is lesson number 3.5. So that is very important. I would definitely recommend growing an email list or even diversifying your audience so that if something like that happens or something similar to that happens, then you'll be okay. You won't be as good as you were, but you'll be okay. And I just have one more lesson for you. I know this was a trip, but I have one more lesson. So after that happened, this dry spell lasted literally years, and my mental health was spiraling. I have spiraled many a time, but I have prevailed. There was light at the end of the tunnel. So what ended up happening for me is that I decided that after looking through all of the options, every single option that life could offer me in the moment, starting a new business, going down with a different business model, getting a job, I actually landed at going back into social media management services because I tried everything. I tried to be a full-time content creator as well, but where we landed was going back into social media management, and I actually am now a successful, again, social media manager. And what actually helped me was really niching down into the audience that I was offering my services to. I would say that I was kind of struggling with the quality of clients that I was getting when I was a social media manager back in 2021. Because I was more of a general social media manager and I was just targeting small businesses, literally that's it, just any small business. So I had clients in every single niche, every single product type. It was whoever was willing to pay me, I was taking them and I was working with them. But now what I've learned from all of that, the back end of being a social media manager and offering services, I decided to niche down into working exclusively with beauty pros as a social media manager. So my messaging within my content and within what I'm saying to market my services is very laser focused, and it actually helped me grow really fast. So this is another lesson, the last lesson. Sometimes niching down is literally the secret that you need, because I have tried to revive my social media account, my social media management account multiple times. It might just be that account is dead. I'm still trying. I'm not going to give up on that account because I put a lot of effort into it. So I'm still going to post on there. I don't know if the communities even existed, but we are going to try. But niching down literally built this new social media management brand from scratch, from zero, from nothing. I have about 8,000 followers on my TikTok account for this business, and I literally fixed my entire financial situation because I niched down in this industry. And I actually really love working with this type of target audience or this group of people. I am actually, like I said, a makeup artist, so it just makes so much sense, and I'm so glad that I did this, and I wish I did it sooner. But again, the last lesson is sometimes niching down is the answer. And if you're a creator and you don't like to hear that you should niche down, I'm kind of mainly talking to business owners who have products or services that they're selling, mainly because when you are trying to sell something to someone, you need to be talking to a specific group of people who have these specific problems that you are specifically solving. So that is just going to laser target these people, make them feel like you're literally inside of their head and you know exactly what their struggles are, what they want out of life or out of whatever it is. And it's just such a better marketing point of view to actually get sales. This can also translate into growing a content or a social media account, because the more niche down you are, like for example, if you think of a really famous person, you might think of them for something really specific. Or you'd be like, oh, that's that girl that blew up over this. or that's the girl who always makes those coffee videos. Niching down can literally... So my camera decided to cut me off, so I guess we're done here. Hopefully you feel inspired. Hopefully you will learn from my mistakes, and if you have any questions, definitely let me know. I'd love to get into it. Also, what I was saying actually was, please let me know what you think of niching down. I know a lot of people don't really like to hear that. I'm not exactly sure why, honestly. As a social media manager, I think it's pretty solid advice, and as a business owner, so I'd love to hear your thoughts and your perspective. So let me know what you think. If you have any other video suggestions or video topics you'd like me to touch on, definitely let me know down in the comments. Go ahead and leave a like down below. It really does help me out. I'm really trying to take this YouTube channel seriously. I have definitely said that before. This time I really have been able to add this into my schedule properly. If you have seen any of my videos in the past, I always talk about having a realistic schedule for staying consistent, and I feel like I am in that place now for this channel. So I have the goal of getting to 500 subscribers, so stick around if you love conversations and content like this. It really would help me out and I would really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. And don't forget to answer the question of the day at the end of the video. Bye.